Welcome to the Fractured Families podcast. I'm Charity, your dedicated parental alienation coach, here to guide and support families as they navigate the challenges of high conflict divorces and custody battles. On this podcast, we'll share insights, practical strategies, and hope for those on the journey toward healing and justice. Whether you're personally experiencing these challenges or just want to learn more about the complexities of parental alienation and custody disputes, you're in the right place. You are not alone. This is the Fractured Families podcast, where every voice matters and every story is heard. And if you find my conversation helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us reach more families who need it. Thanks for joining the Fractured Families podcast. This is Charity, your host. I have with me today Lisa. Lisa's going to share her story of alienation from her child, and she's going to tell us how she became separated, where they're at today, and what she's endured during this process. So, Lisa, thank you for joining and for being a guest on the Fractured Families podcast. Why don't you get started and tell us a little bit about your story of alienation?
Well, I separated from my husband in 2017, June. I was at the end of my breast cancer treatment at the time. And I had decided once I was diagnosed, I was going to leave him, but I needed to get through that treatment. And so when I separated from him, he said to me, I will ruin you and I will tell lies about you. And I'll never forget it. You know, he stood in our bedroom with his hand on the dresser. And, you know, I just thought, well, whatever. And, you know, when we separated, our daughter was 9 years old at the time. You know, her mom had gone through cancer treatment, so she'd been through that already. But she had asked me while we were still together. He was difficult. And she was seeing some things. And she did ask me, you know, at 9 years old, she sat on the end of my bed while I was, you know, not feeling well one time, like through my treatment, and said, "Mommy, please divorce him." And it like shocked me to hear that from my child, because I didn't think, you know, you don't know what your kids are picking up and stuff. And he was very careful to hide a lot of stuff from her, you know. And the last day, like when I decided to leave him for sure, he had gone into quite a rage, and I was still not feeling good. I still wasn't finished my treatment, and I had gone out for a walk. So I was actually laying in bed, and I was quite, you know, shaky and weak, and he's out in the garage throwing things and like all this horrible noise. And, you know, I knew I was going to leave him. And I was like, that's it. And she was out in the backyard playing with her friend in the sandbox, having a great old time. Thank goodness she didn't see any of it. So anyway, I told him from that day, I will never spend another day under this roof, and I'm leaving you. And it was actually Father's Day. Maybe not the best day, but it was what it was, right? And I did let him, of course, spend the day with her, but I said, you know, please bring her back to me. And so it was a very difficult divorce. You know, he's got quite a bit of money, so he's quite resourceful. Our divorce lasted 50 months. And during that time, as far as our daughter goes, he started telling lies about me right away. And we had, I guess, good friends up the road. And she was in contact with me several times a day, like through my treatment, you know, because I was going through this treatment. So she was always in touch with me. And her and her daughter had dropped by, and I told her I was leaving him and what had been going on. And they actually left the house in tears and said, you know, we're going to support you. We're here 100%. And it's actually her husband that I've known for many years, because he was a friend of my brother's. So during this divorce time, you know, the divorce is dragged on, and he was dragging it on because he had the resources to do that. He would see our daughter, but he wouldn't agree to a schedule for her. You know, like, I think it's in the best interest of the child and everybody involved, actually, to know what everybody's up to. And he would never agree to a schedule. And he was barely seeing her, actually. Maybe, you know, it really varied. I can't really say, oh, he saw her once a week or twice a week, because some weeks he wouldn't see her. Sometimes he might see her 3 times a week. And it got so she didn't want to go there either. She resisted going. And I would encourage her to go. And we kind of got in a bit of routine, but he would, you know, he just really wouldn't agree. I remember fighting over that during the divorce. Like, and I couldn't believe we're in our 4th year and he still won't agree to a schedule. Kids have March break. I'm in Canada. That's what, 9 days off. And here it was Sunday, the second Sunday, and he still hadn't even picked her up. And I'll still never remember her at the kitchen island, because she said, "Oh, I want to call my dad. Why isn't my dad coming to see me?" And, I was heartbroken. I'm like, "Call your dad." So he did come and pick her up that time for a few hours and brought her back again. I would ask her to take him sometimes, and he wouldn't take her. But interesting, what he was doing during this time is he was telling people I was alienating her from him. And people were believing him. I don't believe I was alienating him at all. I would also offer, to take her, and he would refuse. I think maybe he thought I was going to go out and have a great time or something. So he didn't want to give me that time away from my child, so to speak. Like, I don't know. I'm just wondering, if that was his angle. So he would also text and say, "I want to pick her up at a certain time." And then, I'd say, "Well, you can't because we're going to go do this." And then again, he had another story. So every story, every resistance I might give for good reason, he would stretch that into something else and then tell people I'm keeping him from his daughter. I just felt like I couldn't win. So she's still quite young at that time. And then finally, we did get, actually, during the divorce time, she's also resisting seeing him. And he wanted 50-50 because, of course, he's claiming alienation. And she didn't want 50-50. She would cry and carry on, and then he wanted to do a custody assessment, and I didn't want to put her through that. And I went over, or I think I picked her up. I I wouldn't have done it in front of her. I remember I went over to his farm to see him, and I'm like, "Please don't put her through this. She doesn't want 50-50 with you." But, I still wanted to be reasonable. I wasn't interested in blocking her from seeing her father at all. I'm a child of a divorced family. I know what it's like to want to see both parents, and I had no interest in blocking her from that. And he started videotaping me. And of course, he's such a master manipulator that he flipped everything around. He's like, "No, that's not what she wants. She wants to be with me 50% of the time, and you're keeping her from me." And I actually can't remember everything he was accusing me of, but if he was to show that video to someone, it would make me look terrible. Like, I just can't win, right? Anyway, we did go through with this custody assessment, and again, he's very resourceful. He had lots of money. It cost lots of money. It cost me lots of money. But as far as he's concerned, he's got lots of money, so he wasn't worried. So my poor daughter had to go through this custody assessment, and it was awful. There was tons of interviews, interviewing me, interviewing my ex, interviewing her individually. Then they had to watch my daughter and I together, and him and her together. And I would say that traumatized her tremendously. Like, she even mentioned it to me recently that she didn't know who these people were. She didn't know why they were asking her all these questions. And the head, I think he was a psychologist, I'm not sure, like the head guy asked her, I gosh, I don't even know if I should say this, but he did actually ask her, "How often do you think about sex?" He asked my daughter that. Like, what the heck? And like, I think she was like 11 or 12, and she was just sobbing because she'd have to have all these meetings because there was 3 interviewers, and it was COVID, so they were being, through Zoom. And she was just sobbing, like, she didn't wanna speak to these people anymore, and I certainly didn't wanna put her through it, but we had to do it. The report came back that she needed to be with her dad 50-50. She was devastated to hear that, and at the end of the report, it said something like, she might have a voice, but she doesn't have a choice. And that devastated her. Like, I just thought that was terrible. Um, Again, I certainly didn't want to keep her from seeing her dad. And she did at one time. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I remember she was curled up in the fetal position on the floor. And she said, I know my dad lies, but I didn't realize how bad he lies. And she said, I don't think I ever want to see him again. And I encouraged her to rethink that. I said, your dad, he's like 11 years older than me. And I said, something's going to happen to him someday. And I think that you should still see him, whatever that means. So she contemplated about that. And she said, well, I'll see him every 3 weeks or something. I don't know. And I remember texting him because she was actually refusing to see him for a period of time. And I was just texting him saying, I am encouraging her to see you. She's refusing, or she might come for this time. I don't remember all the details now. It's been quite a while. So do I regret that? Maybe. Maybe I do now, but no, I actually don't. I mean, I would never want to keep her from her dad. Truly, I wouldn't. Um, and then I always noticed that when she would come back from her dad, she was like a different child. She was, combative and difficult to deal with and not herself and like just acting up. And I remember texting friends about it, and it would take her a day or two to sort of come back to herself. And then as she got, tweens, it started to get worse because if she didn't wanna do something at my house, like a chore or something, she'd get upset with me, and then she would say, "I'm just gonna call my dad." And I would say to him I would text him and say, "Don't pick her up because she didn't clean her room or clean up her guinea pigs," whatever, she had pet guinea pigs at the time, and she needs to do that, but he would ignore me and just come and pick her up. So then that doesn't solve anything for her, not doing her chores. And, it's become a pattern this entire time. And yeah, she just got worse and worse and worse with me, where she was very verbally abusive. It was like I could do nothing right. Um, Raging at me, screaming at me, even coming at me physically a couple times, like pushing me. She wasn't like punching me or anything serious. And I was like, what the heck? Like, she's always been a good kid in school. She's always been a really good kid, and I could always believe everything she told me, and I actually didn't recognize her anymore, and we were always really close. And yeah, we had issues, like, with her chores and stuff. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And I just got so depressed and, like, I just felt helpless because I couldn't get any help from him, because if I ever let him know there were any issues, it was like he just ate that up and magnified those issues 1,000 times, I don't know, and, reinforced that, "Oh, your mom's controlling," like, she has said that to me 100 times, "You're controlling because you want me to clean my room or clean up my dishes or look after my guinea pigs," and, I was very depressed, suicidal, and I found a therapist, and, I was just bawling my eyes out because I'm like, "What the heck?" And she said parental alienation to me, and I was shocked, but as soon as she said those words to me, I knew she nailed it. I knew that was what was happening. Even though I didn't understand it completely, I thought, "Yeah, he has done this to her." And, um, so then I started going down rabbit holes and trying to get information about that, and because I just thought parental alienation was, oh, one parent's trying to keep the child from another parent, but it's so twisted and so deep and so damaging. And yeah, it's very, very, very difficult.
So at any point during this process when she starts to reject you, had he remarried or started a new relationship at all?
Not that I know of. I mean, there was I suspect he is, but, even my daughter says that she thinks he lies to her and says he's going out, like, at 8 o'clock at night, and she goes, "I'm not stupid." But I don't know. He wasn't, public about anybody, as far as I know. Yeah.
So you encourage her to have a relationship with him. She starts to reject you. At that point, how much time is she spending with him?
She got on a schedule of going every Wednesday night overnight and every other weekend, and she was really happy with that. And, that went on for quite some time, and I think we might have alternated Mondays as well at one time instead of the Wednesday because she had music that night, so then we would take turns taking her to music. Um, and then her schedule just sorta just became chaos once again. So I would say for a very short period of time, we even have had a schedule since we separated.
Okay, so you finally get divorced, right? 50 months later. And now she's spending time with him and she's rejecting you. And what happens after that point? Does she eventually come around or does it progressively get worse with the behaviors?
It it has gone in waves or cycles, I would say, where I've never been completely cut off from her for an extremely long period of time. I always feel like that's coming though, even right now. It's like, she gets mad at me. I feel like my ex-husband is in the house screaming at me, raging at me, accusing me of these things. Her memories have been replaced with false narratives or twisted. Like, I feel like there's nothing I can say to defend myself, and maybe I shouldn't be trying to defend myself, but it's almost like a natural thing to wanna defend yourself. It's like, no, that's not even true, and, she recently said to me, "Well, you used to yell at me when I was and tell me to make my lunch in grade 3," and I was like, "That is absolutely not true." Like, I'm just flabbergasted, and I said, "Your lunch was made until you were pretty much in grade 8 till started like, no, that's no good,' or 'I just want this,' right?" And, I've heard other things like that, and it just feels like he's just had so much time to manipulate her, I don't know what the word is, that, like, I don't even know where to begin, like, and she doesn't value or care what I have to say anyway. It's like she just wants to unload on me and then leave or she'll leave and then she comes around in a period of time and wants to see me again. We can maybe have a nice time, maybe not. Sometimes she just boom out of the blue, pulls something out of thin air, starts accusing me of something, and then poof. She's always like poof, gone, poof. And now she has her own car. She's 17. So yeah, now she just leaves. It's been the pattern that started and it's still happening. So there's like this constant cycle I've noticed that she sort of will come around, get mad, accuse me of stuff. But I feel like the alienation is getting deeper and deeper and deeper into her that um, I'm afraid she'll just have nothing to do with me, you know. But in the last I think in the last 2 weeks, and I don't really see her much right now, but I am constantly texting her, constantly trying to see her. Maybe I'll send her a red heart or I'll send her a little message or, I don't send her the same thing all the time. And I don't always say I love you or I miss you because I don't want to sound crazy, even though I do miss her and want her here, right? Um, so she will agree to see me sometimes. And so in the last couple of weeks, she has said two very different things to me. And one was, um, I'm better off without you. And I just want my mom back. So that tells you where the poor girl is at. And she's been like this for years. And it's like she loves me, but she hates me. And I know she loves me deep down, but I don't see a lot of that. And I remember back when we first, it wasn't long after we separated, her father, or her adult, she has a half brother who's an adult, and he had a birthday party for her dad. And I said, well, I'll pick you up because I know your dad will be drinking. And so I did that. And when I picked her up, she got in the car and she just burst into tears. And I think she was 11 or 12. And she said, it's like I'm not allowed to have a mom. She said, I can't mention your name. I can't talk about you. And I know it. I know that it's not just him on this, it's his family. And so that makes it really tough. But yeah, she's very, probably very confused, probably being told lots of things from him, but when she sees me, that's not who I am, I'm assuming.
So she's 17 now. How much time does she spend with him versus you?
She's pretty much not seeing me right now. I got her to go out with me last week for supper. It didn't go well at all. She was extremely angry. And there's actually something I need to tell her that her, I just, and I've talked to my therapist about it, and she knows there needs to, like a conversation needs to happen. But my therapist has agreed we need to do this with the therapist, either her therapist, who she's refusing to see right now, or mine, but in a safe space for both of us because she loses it, right? So she's very angry. I will not tell her whatever this is between us, right? So that's why she was so angry with me. She's like, just tell me, I won't run out, I promise. And she got mad and ran out. Um, but so she's angry about that right now. So I don't hardly see her much. I'm lucky if I see her once a week for a couple of hours right now. Now, is she really seeing him much at his house? Not really, because he's not around a lot. She tells me she's at school, she's working, she's, she has a boyfriend, so she has her friends. But I mean, yeah, she's at at his house most of the time.
So when did it start to transition where she spent more time with him and less with you? Like, well, what age approximately? Because it sounds like she started to have some time there, and then it sounds like it's transitioned to her being there full time, even though initially she didn't want it. And chances are he starts to brainwash and manipulate. And I mean, it's hard to say because you don't have insight, and neither do I. But based off her behaviors, she probably feels like she has to be aligned with him. So at what point did she start to reject coming back to your house? At what age?
It's been probably for 6 years. It's this cycle where I mean, yeah, she was with me more time for sure. And I would say it's just more recently in the last year that the time has really dwindled down. Yeah, she just pops, gets angry, goes to her dad's, and then, there's no rhyme or reason to this. And when she was in therapy, let me see, earlier this year, she went back to her therapist who she liked. And I don't know what happened, what she quit, but during that time, she was doing really well. She was, there seemed to be a really good balance between me and her dad's house. She seemed really happy, really at peace. And, and she told me I'm going to be spending more time at your house again. And she did. And, but then she got mad and away she went again. And, um, the reason for that, it was interesting because I went through breast cancer. She texted me from school because she was running this cancer run for school. And she's like, Mom, she was all excited in her text, will you come speak at this cancer run? And I was like, well, I don't want to, but I'll do it for her, right? Like she's asking me, so like I have to do it. So I worked on this speech and we went to my sister's for Easter this year. And the speech was going to be a couple days after Easter break went back. And I said to her, just quietly, excuse me, at the table, I said, "So, what exactly is this speech about, or this assembly about?" So I had a speech written, but I kind of wanted to know where to direct it. Well, she lost her mind on me. That's how quick it happens, and told me I hadn't worked on a speech, and just went berserk on me at my sister's, which is a couple hours from here. And I was like, "What the heck?" This is the type of thing that happens. And I said, "I've spent hours, like, on a speech, like, and it's not easy to write about this stuff." But she just, like, amped it up, and she said, "You can do that speech, but I won't support you," and just said all these horrible things to me, totally crushed me. And it doesn't matter how much work I do on myself, like, it just still crushes me. I'm not in bed for 3 days anymore like I used to be, but it's still like a kick, and still my child. And she had brought her car to my sister's because she had to work, so she came a day later. And yeah, she hopped in her car, she came back to my place, unloaded her room, out she went. And
So
then,
it's
yeah, 2 days later, she's texting me from school, "Mom, will you please come do this speech? Will you please come do this speech?" Like, this is w this is my life.
is there anything, or do you think, I mean, I can go through a ton of reasons why, but again, I'm not making assumptions, but from a parenting perspective, is there more leniency at her father's house than yours? Do you know?
Yeah, he doesn't parent her. There's no rules there. Yeah, and he goes to bed so early that she can stay out at for whatever amount of time she wants, because she knows her dad's in bed. He's not, checking on her to make sure she's making it home. And I said to her, "I'm just praying that your boyfriend knows where you are all the time." And she agreed that he does. So that's the one thing I have to be thankful about is, her boyfriend is making sure she's getting home safe.
So she's a teenage girl, right? She starts to have this freedom, and they're teenagers. They recognize that they like that, and they get to set the rules, and they get to determine what they can and can't do. And so there can be a little bit of that as well. Has there been any thought about you two being in therapy together, or does that happen at all?
We tried that, and it didn't go very well. I don't think my therapist did not understand alienation. Um, and my daughter wasn't being, like, truthful, so that wasn't helpful. And still very just angry at me. And, like, I asked her again last week about going, and she said she will never go to therapy with me. She will never go. I mean, keep asking her, but yeah.
So when your therapist said that she thought it was alienation, or she thought this was parental alienation, what did you do? You started to research. You just said you went down a rabbit hole. Did did you learn any tools or tips or tricks? And did you find any support groups to help you with what you're going through?
Yes, of course, I got on YouTube, and, I watched different, specialists in parental alienation, um, and I also found the most helpful thing is the Parental Alienation Anonymous, um, online Zoom meetings with other parents, and it's saved my life for sure. I'm not sure I would still be here, and I can't tell you how many times I have heard those exact same words in those rooms, either subtly or not so subtly, because as a parent, the grief is tremendous. And just being in the same space as parents that get this, just sitting there is healing, and listening. It's hard to listen to the same stories, different kids' ages, different degrees of alienation, but our stories are all the same, and our kids are all suffering the same. It's it's so messed up. And a lot of people don't get it. And if it wasn't for that group, yeah, I just don't think I would be here. And then I recently attended the Parental Alienation Study Group conference in Toronto. I didn't really want to go to that because I thought it would be too difficult, too emotional for me because I feel like I'm maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. I mean, I've come a long way, but I still am really, really struggling. But one of the guys in the Zoom group from the Parental Alienation Anonymous group, he said, I really encourage you to go there and meet other parents in person. And it was only because of him saying that I went and getting ready to go. And it's like a 2-hour drive for me to get there. I was just so physically weak. I felt sick. I had massive resistance because I thought this is going to totally do me in, right? To listen to all this awfulness. And anyway, everything went really smooth. Like I got a hotel close for a really good deal, and everything just went it just lined up. And I'm so happy I went. Just meeting the other parents, you know, and we've created a WhatsApp uh, group now where we're all supporting each other. We're going to meet up in person. I connected with some other moms and I'm messaging with them. We're going to meet up. And honestly, just sitting with them. And yeah, it's hard to hear about what we're going through for sure. It's awful. But to just be with people that get it is priceless. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a really great meeting. I was there. I'm sorry we missed each other. It was quite a substantial
Oh,
group.
yeah.
But one thing that I learned early on is that when you first recognize you're going through alienation, to your point, you don't know what's happening, right? You don't You just don't know, and sometimes a professional will tell you or a friend will tell you, but either way, you come to the realization that you're being alienated from your child. And the one thing the literature has said that has been immensely and incredibly helpful for parents is to learn, become educated, immerse yourself in it, recognize that you're not alone, because that's the biggest thing when you're going through this and you finally realize what it is. As a mom, it happens to moms and dads, of course. But
Yes.
I think that try not to be very stereotypical, but I think when a mom is rejected, there's a lot more scrutiny about it. I think men get rejected and people think, well, he did something to deserve it. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's the farthest thing from the truth in parental alienation.
Yes.
But I think so you're a mom and you're going through it and you're isolated and you're probably a little bit uncertain about who you can share this with as well, because if they don't understand it, there might be some doubt. And then you're struggling with perspective of other people as well.
Yes. 100%. Yes. And we're from, well, I've moved out of that area just in the last less than a year, but my ex is a farmer, small farming community. Everybody knows each other. And my daughter's going to this school. And, I don't think it's a secret that she doesn't think I'm all rainbows and unicorns. I don't know what she's saying about me, but she does seem to still want me to attend like her music things or things that outsiders might see, which I find interesting, or like she let me post back to school a back to school photo, and I'm kind of like, well, why does she let me post this? Like, or why does she want me to come to her music? And of course I want to come. Like, don't think I don't want to go, but I'm it's maybe that, like her dad, she does want things to still look good, on the outside. And I do believe she generally does want me to come deep down, of course, but, yeah. Yeah, but the shame is
And she's a heart divided, right? She's just a kid who was forced to reject a loving parent. And I don't think people truly understand the impact that has on children. They're torn. She's in a loyalty conflict. I love my mother, but also I live with my father. And there's things that he gives her or he does for her that she, even though she may not agree with this, she gets to do what she wants, and there's some freedom in that. So she's clearly torn, and she's still present. As painful as her moments can be, she's present. And it's hard because you want more, and it's just so heartbreaking that you did nothing to deserve
No.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's happening to thousands and thousands and thousands of parents and children. And, after going to that conference and seeing all those people and, the more I become aware, the more devastating I realize this is to these children. And I know what it's done to my daughter. And I know that on the outside, she appears to be doing really well. She does good in school. She's musical. She seems to have it all together. But as her mom, as parents, we know our children. And that girl is destroyed inside. I know she is. And I'm trying to help her, but she doesn't want my help, at least right now.
Yeah, and sadly, people don't recognize it until sometimes they express it in ways that are frightening. And that's the one thing you made a really good point that people see her on the outside and she appears so well-rounded and established and put together. And that's the biggest piece that's frightening because when that facade cracks, that's when you start to see the real trauma that she's endured. And that's the scary part. It's becoming so common. And I think it's probably always been there. I just don't think it was ever really talked about because, again, kind of like we talked about earlier, is that one, if you're rejected from your child by your child, people think you deserved it, so you don't talk about it, so it's been kind of a little bit hush hush, and now it's
Yes.
becoming much more pronounced, and people are bringing awareness to us, and family courts are just so blatantly not in the favor of the child that people are speaking up.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think there's so many groups that need to be made aware of it as well. And, like teachers and police
Mhm.
and like everybody, actually, everybody needs to be made aware of this because it's so twisted. And then it's, you can hardly even explain it to people, you
Yeah, you know
know?
what's so interesting? When I went to Toronto and, coming in from outside of Canada, they scrutinize you. And so I'm going through and they said, "What are you here for?" And I said, "A conference." And he said, "What is the conference for?" And I said, "Parental Alienation Study Group." He's like, "What is parental alienation?" And I said, "It's where one parent encourages the child who had a formerly loving relationship with that parent to reject them and be hurtful toward them and not have a relationship with them." And he looks at me and he said, "Is that real?" "Yeah, that's it." And he goes, "Wow. Yeah." He goes, "Oh, enjoy the conference." But he just like, people don't know. And quite honestly, prior to me becoming immersed in this, similar to you, not because you want it, but you don't know. You just don't know. Yeah, that's crazy.
I never dreamt this could happen, like every other parent. I'm not gonna just say, "Oh, my relationship with my daughter was great." All our relationships with our
Yeah,
children are, like, priceless, and the
yeah.
bond is, like, so strong, and I saw signs from the second that girl was born from my ex-husband. I remember in my haze of exhaustion and just giving birth thinking, "Why isn't he more excited about this?" He got kinda weird and, in one of his moods, and I was like, "This is weird," and he stayed like that. Like, I was so puzzled. I was so puzzled, and then I wanted to sit in the back seat with her on the way home. I mean, I'd been through infertility for years. I'd given up on having children. I had her at 40 years old. She was such a miracle child. And, I said, "I wanna sit in the back seat with her," and he's like, "No." I was exhausted to the bone, so I'm like, "All right." So, you don't know what you don't know, though, and I didn't even understand personality disorders as well, like, he was diagnosed with one during our divorce. You know, I wish I knew that at 14 years old, my whole life would be different.
Before we close out, do you have anything you want to share for our listeners? Any final thoughts?
But just don't give up. I mean, coming back from that conference, the group on Zoom that I meet with, they asked me to describe, how I felt in one word, no pressure. And I said, just, I have hope. I have hope. You know, there's so many professionals out there that do get it. Some kids do reunite or come around, but, I understand not wanting or or I understand the feeling of giving up for sure, and I do give up. I say, "I give up," but what I know what I mean, is I give up for today, maybe a couple days, maybe a few days, but I'm not going to give up for the long run, ever.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your story. And
You're
thank you
welcome.
for
Thank
being a
you.
guest on the Fractured Families podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Fractured Families podcast. I hope our conversation has provided you with support, understanding, and actionable insights to help you navigate your own family challenges. Remember, healing is a journey, and reaching out for help is a sign of strength. You're not alone. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more families in need. You can contact me on social media at Parental Alienation is Real and visit our website for additional resources and ways to get involved. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep fighting for the family bonds that matter most. Until next time, take care and stay resilient.